Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 621 for the 18th of Av in a regular year. So, pop quiz question for you guys. Who knows what the largest bone in the human body is? So, I can't hear what your answers are, but maybe I'll give you guys a moment to think about it. And now I'll give you the answer. So, the answer, for those of you that didn't know, is the femur bone, otherwise known as the thigh bone. So it's really interesting if you think about that because, we have a lot of different parts of our body and our thighs are not necessarily something that we think about that much. But for those of us who are healthy, thank God, and able to walk around and, have a functioning femur bone and everything, these femur bones are really so essential to our roles as human beings. And if you really think about it, they actually can be thought of as being linked to that which makes us essentially human, as we'll see. So why? Because what makes us uniquely human, what differentiates us between other animals, let's say, is that only humans have the ability to stand upright on 2 feet. And interestingly enough, one of the essential functions of the femur bone of the thighs is to support the upper part of the body. The upper part meaning the torso and really ultimately the head. And so as we know, and as we've spoken about a lot in the Tanya so far, Judaism places a lot of emphasis on the head, on the mind, on learning about God. The whole Chabad system is based around this idea of Chochmah Bina Das, the intellectual appreciation of God and connection that we can connect with God, that we have an obligation to know God. The very first instruction that the Rambam gives in his famous Sefer of Mishnah Torah is to know that there's a God. So there is, as we all know, a very big focus on the intellect, on the mind. However, as we're going to be learning today, this mind really, as important as it is, it needs to have support. And in order for us to walk around with our heads held high and to have our intellect not be, just in this like ivory tower kind of place, like we spoke about yesterday, those of you who followed along yesterday about the intellectual who has difficulty communicating with other people because he really is so far removed from other people. And there needs to be this impetus to really get him to draw, or her to draw down the intellect to the others. And we liken this to God and how God really needs this attribute of chesed in order to bring about his intellect into the world. So the intellect on its own is, while it's nice, it needs a support. And what is the support in the body? The support really is the thighs, the femur bone, we can call it. And so today we're going to talk about what that means in terms of the collective Jewish people, and how we'll see that in the collectivity of the Jewish people in a certain sense can be divided into 2 categories. And we'll see that one of those categories is more associated with the mind, with the brain, with the intellect. And then the other category is really associated with the thighs that support this mind, this brain. So we'll get into the text in a moment, but just to kind of break that down for you so you know what to expect, as we'll see, the 2 main categories that the Alter Rebbe is going to bring to light for us are the category of those Jews who are primarily involved in Torah study, And that's like their main occupation. And then there's those Jews who are primarily involved in chesed, in giving and doing tzedaka and that kind of thing. And while, of course, every Jew is supposed to be involved in tzedaka, and really every Jew is supposed to be involved in Torah study as well, but it's really about what the priority is, what the focus is of these two groups. And while at first glance it might seem like those intellectual people, those people who focus on Torah study, are the ones to be praised the most, are on that higher level, because the mind really is above everything else in the body, even physically placed so, we'll see that in fact there is an advantage that these other category of Jews have, the thighs, and how they serve to support the head, and how they're actually essential and necessary in order for the mind to fulfill its purpose here in this world. So with all of that being said, let's get into the text and see how the Alter Rebbe explains all of this. For context, we're in the middle of Epistle 5 of Iggeres HaKodesh, and we're actually going to conclude Epistle 5 today. So here we go. So the Alter Rebbe begins today by citing a teaching that's taught by the Arizal, that there are two types of different Jewish souls. There's the souls of the Jews who are Talmidei Chachamim, that are involved in Torah study their entire lives. And then there are the souls of those people that are involved in different mitzvahs and do tzedakah and chesed their whole life. And at first glance, this seems really strange, because it's like, we know that we just said before, doing tzedakah and chesed is something everybody has to do. So even a Talmid Chacham, if they're truly a Talmid Chacham, they're going to be involved in doing acts of kindness, right? So, and because as we just learned, that it's like somebody who says, I only have Torah, but they don't have any acts of kindness, they don't even have Torah. However, what's the difference? What's the differentiation? Is that the Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars, their main thing is Torah. That's like what they're involved with most of their lives. And then, yes, they're involved in Gemilas Chasadim, they're involved in good deeds, but it's just a small amount of their life. It's not most of their life. And so since this chesed that they do is just a small aspect of their lives, yes, it has an effect. Sure, it's doing this effect of the Iggeres Dilatata, this arousal from below, and it elicits the higher chesed, the supernal chesed. And so then it does draw down the chokhmah, the supernal chokhmah, which is the source of the Torah that is in their mouth. But it only draws it down as far as the world of the neshamos in Bria, in the world of Bria, through their occupation in Gemara. Like through their study, like let's say you have these Torah scholars and they're involved in learning Torah all day long. And yes, they do a little bit of chesed here and there to as much time as they have for it. So that the Gemara study that they learn is going to be drawn down through the power of the chesed that they do. That chesed that they do, the little amount of chesed they do, gives the power of the Gemara that they learn to be drawn down from the supernal chokhmah into the world of Bria. And then the Mishnah that they learn can be drawn down, that causes the Chokhmah of Hashem to be drawn down into the angels that are found in Yetzirah, in the next world over. And so the reason for this is because whether we're talking about the neshamos or the souls or the angels, that their vitality, it comes directly through the different combinations of the letters of speech, which is the oral Torah, which we spoke about previously. And the source of these letters of Torah from the oral Torah is in the combination of these letters is from the supernal chokhmah, as we spoke about before. However, if we want to talk about having this chokhmah of Hashem be drawn down in order to come really down here into the lower hay, this is into our world, right? So again, in the Yud Ke Vav Ke, each one of those letters corresponds to a different realm. The Yud, the highest Yud, corresponds to Atzilus. The He corresponds to Bria, the first He, meaning the Vav corresponds to Yetzirah, and then the final He corresponds to our world, to the world of Asiya that we live in. So in order to have this Chokhmah, the supernal Chokhmah of Hashem, come down into our world, into this lower He, which is a very, very great symptom. Like there's no greater contraction than this. It's not enough to just have the Iggeres Dilatata, the arousal from below of the Talmidei Chachamim that just are involved a little bit in chesed and tzedakah. but rather we need a much greater arousal from below for those people from those other souls who their mainstay, like the main occupation that they do, the most of what they're involved with is not Torah study, but it's actually being involved in mitzvahs and in giving tzedakah and things like that and acts of kindness. And so those kind of souls are actually essential. They're the only ones that have the power to draw down the supernal chachma into this physical world that we're in this lower world. And the Alter Rebbe says that this is explained further in depth in the first part of Likutei Amarim, the Sefer Shel Beinonim, in chapter 34. So you're welcome to go look that up also. Where that's in that section, it just talks about giving charity and about how we're really supposed to give ideally a fifth of our income to charity. And that elevates all the other portions of our charity. And so now we can understand why these people, these Balei Tzedaka, these people that are involved in tzedakah and in mitzvahs most of their lives, are called Tamchei Oraita. They're supporters of the Torah itself. And so why? Why are they the supporters of the Torah? Because these people who are involved in mitzvahs and in tzedakah, we can think of them as being on the level of Netzach and Hod. Netzach and Hod are lower down in the chain of the spheros. So it's like Netzach and Hod are thought of as the thighs. So it's like often the spheros are likened to like a person, like, or illustrated in the guise of a person that we can think of as like Chesed is the right arm, Gvura is the left arm. We spoke about this before. Tiferes is the heart, or sometimes kind of like maybe the stomach kind of area. And then you have Netzach and Hod. Netzach and Hod are the thighs. And so these thighs, while they are lower down, think about it, the thighs actually do support the entire body. So they're kind of like the mainstay of the entire body. And this is why these thighs, this Netzach and Hod, these people who are the mitzvah doers, they have the ability to draw down the light of Torah down here into this world of Asiyah. And now this is why, with all of this in mind, we can now understand why it is that tzedakah is called maaseh. It's called action, the act, which is like, it's just the action. I mean, like there's lots of actions in the world. Why is tzedakah specifically action? Because we know that, and also another verse, this is from Yeshayahu chapter 32, verse 17. It says, "Vayaya ma'aseh tzedakah shalom," that the act of charity will be peace. So there's something about charity that's really thought of as an act, and it promotes peace. And, going back to this beginning of the section where we're talking about how there is this power that tzedakah has to build Hashem's name, to make Hashem's name. So what does this mean? And the reason why is because this tzedakah has its job is to draw down the light of God into the world of Asiyah. And so now this is why we can understand this idea of what the Zohar is teaching. He who makes the holy name. And specifically it says makes, De'avid, makes the holy name. Because through this arousal from below, from the tzedakah and chesed, the lower tzedakah and chesed, this arouses the supernal chesed. And this arousal of the supernal chesed draws down the light of the Ein Sof, which is the aspect of the chokhmah, the higher chokhmah, which is the yud, the highest level, the first letter of Hashem's name, to the hey of the lower hey, in an aspect of speaking, and which is the spirit of God's mouth, in order to draw it down and to influence this whole world of Asiyah. And this is by way of analogy, like to a really, like, we can't even compare it to an infinite degree, basically, when we talk about a person. So a person only speaks when there's somebody there to speak to. A person doesn't speak to themselves. I mean, maybe some people speak to themselves, but generally speaking, it's not the norm. Usually when we speak, we're speaking to somebody else. And when we do that, a person really has to let some tzem to constrict their minds and their thoughts in speaking to them. And those who are maskilim, those who are intelligent, will understand this. So that's the end of this section. And so just to bring it all together, the basic idea is now we concluded and we understood why it is that we say that tzedakah makes God's name. Like, what does this mean, makes God's name? And we see that it's because specifically that, yes, God created the world initially through just pure chesed, nothing to do with us. We weren't even here or anything. But now that we're here, now that God did create us, he created us with a purpose, and he wants our help. He wants our help in being partners in creation. He wants us to partner with him in revealing God's presence here in the world and in keeping the world alive. So we do that through Torah study, sure. Yes, because through Torah study, what we're doing is we're channeling Hashem's Chokhmah, because the Torah of Hashem is Chokhmah, and Hashem creates the world through speech. So when we speak the words of Torah out loud, this channels the Torah, this channels Hashem's wisdom through our speech. So it brings it into the world. But this is a very big deal. This cannot happen just like that. There needs to be a chesed. There needs to be an arousal of chesed, because the way that initiation of even Hashem creating the world, Hashem bringing the world into being, came about through his chesed. So in order for Hashem's chesed to be elicited, we need to elicit chesed down here. And so that is why doing acts of chesed is so important. And yes, sure, Torah scholars also are involved with chesed, but because their chesed is only a minute part of their day, they can only arouse Hashem's chesed to descend down and to have the chokhmah descend down into the angels and into the neshamos, of whether we're talking about the world of Bria or whether we're talking about the world of Yetzirah. But in order for it to come down and to hit down here in the world of Asiyah, we need a lot more chesed. And so that's where the people that are involved in chesed are so essential. And this is why we call chesed the maaseh, we call it action, because chesed really is this action. It is an act of creation, basically. So the bottom line is give tzedakah. This is like the main message of many, many, many of the epistles in this section, is just to give tzedakah, give lots of tzedakah, and through giving tzedakah, just to have an awareness that you're literally being a partner in creation when you give tzedakah. You're literally giving the power of God. You're eliciting the power from above of God to allow the world to continue to subsist by way of the Torah. So that's it for today, and we will continue tomorrow when we begin a new epistle, and I'll speak to you then. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.